To all of our officers of the Alabama River Region Conference, to our visitors, our friends, I count it a joy to be your speaker tonight. And I promise you, I won't keep you long. My sister from Selma, Mary Salam, mentioned my mother, who was really a freedom fighter. She was a quiet storm. But the first time I was asked to speak at a program such as this, she said to me before I left home, she said, I want you to do three things. Be clear, be brief, be seated. So tonight I am going to attempt to be clear, be concise, and I'm going to be seated. Let me not count it robbery to mention my sister who came over from Tuskegee, Washington Chapel AME Church in the Northeast Conference. And riding with her is a dear friend of ours. She's a Catholic, but we're claiming her tonight. Deborah, thank you for coming with her, Deborah. To members of Brown Chapel who are here, and especially to my pastor. I wanted to get up this morning when he was doing his institute to tell him he was stealing my speech. A lot of things he said this morning, just pretend you didn't hear it this morning. Because I'm going to say it again, but you know my voice is going to be a little sweeter than his. So it'll sound a little different. The theme, a plea for justice through love and mercy. A plea for justice through love and mercy. This theme is not new to us because of the pervasive acts of hatred, ill will, violence, and outright disregard for our humanity that has been perpetrated on us from the time of our enslavement to now. The Bible tells us in Micah 6:8, he has shown you, O mortal, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. Now, you know, that is not just for us black folk. The Bible wasn't written just for us. It was written for all folk. Some folks don't seem to know that. One of Dr. Martin Luther King's often quoted scriptures is Amos 5:24. But let justice roll on like a river, righteousness like a never-ending stream. It should be noted here that Amos was a mere shepherd from the southern kingdom of Judah. He went into an atmosphere, and I want you to listen to this. He went into an atmosphere of overconfident nationalism and stood in the great temple of Bethel and announced that God is stirring up a nation to conquer Israel. He told them that the day of the Lord would be darkness, not light. God was not impressed with wealth, nor is he impressed with ours. He was not impressed with Israel's military might, nor is he impressed with ours. He was not impressed with their self-indulgent way of life. Neither is he impressed with ours. He is looking for justice, while the rich and powerful are making examples of the poor and taking advantage of them. Does that sound familiar? Amos is subsequently banished from the kingdom as his oracles caused an uproar, and he was accused of treason. Although it is a short book, there are about 36 oracles plus the story of Amos's banishment. The important thing for us to note tonight, though, is the one strong and consistent message. Let justice, let justice, let justice roll on like a river and righteousness like a mighty stream. Well, what about this justice? It seems to be elusive in our present-day society. Would you agree? This fight is age-old and goes back to biblical times. What about now? Are we still in the fight? Let us not forget that the African Methodist Episcopal Church was founded on the need for social justice, equality, and a place where African Americans could come together in unity. We didn't initially found the church. We founded the Free African Society. And what did they do? They went about the city of Philadelphia doing good for those in need. They were poor themselves for the most part, but they helped those who were in need to the point that when the yellow fever broke out and the other folk left, they stayed to help those that were in trouble. You know the story. But what about the need for social justice, economic justice today? Same old song, second verse. We stand now not in the cradle of Confederacy, but in the cradle of the fight for social and economic justice. We stand in Montgomery, Alabama, where Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat. And you know what? She and Fannie Lou Hamer, who came a little bit later, was thinking the same thing. They were tired of being sick and tired. Aren't you tired of being sick and tired? Well, what you gonna do? You ought to be tired of being sick and tired. I am. These same old fights. What do we want? Down through the years, and especially in the 50s and 60s, there were fiery speeches made by many to demand equality and civil rights. Fannie Lou Hamer addressed thousands of people who were a part of the subsequent Democratic Convention, where she asked, "Is this America, the land of the free and the home of the brave, where we have to sleep with our telephones off the hook? Is this America?" James Baldwin, activist and writer, wrote in 1965, "The people who are denied participation in the American dream by their very presence will wreck it." In 1965, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and I have to insert here, I was standing there at the foot of the Capitol when he said these words, "How long will prejudice blind the visions of men?" His answer was, "Not long, because the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice." Dr. King did not get his wish. He hoped that racist brutality was coming to an end. He saw the spike, the increase in brutality, and the increase in the number of hate groups. Sound familiar? He was a victim of that hatred. It has not decreased from that time, but I submit to you, and you know it's true, the covers are off and hate has been unleashed. There are men in our modern day society, no matter the struggles we have fought, the battles we engage in, the push for justice we continue to fight for, the desire to live peacefully in this world and enjoy the freedoms endowed by our Creator and the Constitution. The war is not over. When we were marching for the right to vote, we already had it. We had the right. It just was not enforced because we were seen as subhuman. What do we want? I'm going to tell you a few things. We want to be accepted for who we are and for the contributions we make to the world. Excuse me. I can speak because my ancestors, before being brought to America, spoke the language of kings and queens. My people can build anything because before they were brought to America, they were designers and builders of beautiful edifices for worship and other reasons. They built the pyramids. My people did that. Our people did that. My brothers and sisters can sew and design because our ancestors designed and made their native dress and were well versed in cloth and how to make the dye to fashion those colorful outfits we are so willing to pay dearly for today. What did life on the plantation teach my ancestors? Nothing. Nothing. Because they came to these shores with skills. They didn't learn them on the plantation. As a matter of fact, Massa didn't know them. None of them. But you know what I say? How dare anyone say we were happy on the plantation? This is the epitome of stupidity and ignorance. I call a thing. Stupidity and ignorance. What do we want? To be governed by those who value us as human beings, to be able to participate fully in the democratic process of making and enforcing laws. We don't want to be lawless, but we want to be a part of that process that makes those laws that we have to live under. We don't mind the laws, but we want to be fully engaged in the process. We want our elected officials to recognize, and I want us all to hear this, because this is not a prejudiced statement on my part. You listen to me. And in case we have any elected officials out there tonight, we want our elected officials, whether they are black or white, to understand that their one vote did not get them elected. We want to be acknowledged through public policy that our vote indeed counts. Our children too often see the failures of the democratic process, and that leads to their not being wanting to be a part of it. So, what do we want? We want to be able to bow in humble submission to our God to ask for justice and mercy. Psalm 89:14 tells us, righteousness and justice are the foundation of your throne, Love and faithfulness go before you. Hebrews 4:16 says, let us then approach God's throne with confidence, so we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need. We need mercy. We need grace. We need God because the fight we are in cannot be fought alone. The fight we are in must be fought with a strong tower, our God showing us up on every side. The enemy we face today is a hatred so strong that man cannot win the battle. Man must, however, entreat our God to go into battle with us. Do not think he is asleep. He sees all and knows all. We must lift up our eyes to the heaven from whence our help comes. Surely God is my help, the Lord, the one who sustains me. What do we want? Often when troubles assail us, we must seek God's face. He is there waiting for us to come to him. We cannot, however, rest in that we must also be about the Father's business. Actions are only successful when you are active. Nothing is attained from sitting and waiting for something to happen. A teacher said to her class, "Class, suppose you were all millionaires. Write what you would do." The little children started furiously writing in their tablets, except for little Johnny, who kicked back and put his feet up on the desk with his hands behind his head. The teacher walked over and said, "Johnny, why aren't you writing?" Johnny said, "I'm waiting for my secretary." We cannot wait for the secretary. Whatever major strides were made in our history by our forebears were made by those who were on the move. They were not waiting. Suppose Shirley Chisholm had waited to run for president. She did not win, but she made a statement. And she is remembered today because she was unbought and unbossed. And I'm just like her. I'm unbought and I'm unbossed. While I move to try to make things happen. What if Kizzmekia Corbett, PhD, waited to become one of the leading scientists developing the COVID-19 vaccine in 2020? Many would still be dying. What if Barack Obama had waited? He might have not have ever been the greatest president ever. He said, and so the world watches America, the only great power in history, made up of people from every corner of the planet, comprising every race and faith and cultural practice, to see if our experiment in democracy can work. To see if we can do what no other nation has ever done. To see if we can live up to our creed. And you can find this in his book, A Promised Land. What if George Washington Carver had waited? You wouldn't be able to eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. What if Kamala Harris had waited? What if Claudette Colvin had waited? What if Annie Lee Cooper, who fought Sheriff Jim Clark on the steps of the Dallas County Courthouse, had waited? What if the Tuskegee Airmen had waited? What if Ruby Bridges had waited? Schools would not be integrated. Some of the names I called are not easily recognized. That was on purpose. So you understand that many who contributed to the successes were ordinary people doing extraordinary things. This means we too can contribute. Keep praying and asking for justice and mercy. But when you get up off your knees, go into action. Do something. Be about something. There is work to do. There's too much hatred out there. We see it every day. Everybody talks about the the orange-haired man. So we know what he's spewing. So that tells us we have work to do. It takes all of us, the old and the young, the rich and the poor, the haves and the have-nots. We must band together like never before. We can do it. Ask the brothers at the riverfront. Those of us who fought in the 60s, and we like to talk about, I'm one of them, how many times I marched, how many times I heard Dr. King. But you know what I've got to do and what you've got to do? You've got to listen to the Black Lives Matter brothers and sisters. You've got to listen to the radical brothers and sisters, because they're not going to fight like I fought. They're not going to do it my way. Our way may be past and gone. Young folk don't think like us. Sometimes they need a chair. Not to sit in. And I'm not promoting violence, but sometimes I think like Malcolm X, by any means necessary. And we have to remember that when we get in this fight today, there's always going to be retaliation from the other side. So we, as African Americans, must remain alert. Watch your surroundings, because the retaliation will come from that other person who has a suntan and smiling in your face. Watch the smiling faces. They don't always mean you any good. Our plea for justice and mercy will elicit unwarranted reactions, but just as our forebears, we can stand and stand strong. We pray, but we also plan interventions as we move towards social justice and equality. Langston Hughes wrote a poem, and I'm closing, entitled, "I Look at the World." I look at the world from awakening eyes and a black face, and this is what I see. This fenced-off narrow space assigned to me. I look then at the silly walls through dark eyes and a dark face, and this is what I know, that all these walls' oppression bills will have to go. I look at my own body with eyes no longer blind, and I see that my own hands can make the world that's in my mind. Then let us hurry, comrades, the road to find a plea for justice and mercy. Get up off your knees, find that justice, find that mercy. Take God by the hand. Let God take you by the hand and lead you into battle. This is my plea.